Guys, here at the FITAID Morning Show, we bring you some of the best guests and some of the best content. And right now, no shortage of that. Right here, Mr. Dan Clark. You all know him as Nitro from American Gladiators.
Hey, Kenny, it's a pleasure to be here.
It is an honor to sit here with you. You are a childhood hero of mine. I'd say in this order, it was Stallone, Hulk Hogan, and then Nitro.
Oh,
so that was like the blessed trinity when I was a kid.
Well, the funny thing is we all still lift.
Yeah, and that's what the most impressive thing is. My idols are still like living the dream, and I love that. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, I'm glad to be here, man.
So what are you doing here at Wadapalooza?
I'm competing.
Yeah, tell us a little about it.
The AARP division. The senior division. You got your AARP card? Come on in. You know, they kick your ass right out.
I mean, you still look great. How old are you again?
52.
52. I mean, you know how many 52-year-olds wish they looked like you?
Yeah, there's 15 of them that look better than me here I'm competing against. You know, one thing I'm shocked, and the one thing I'm glad Wadapalooza did, is they created more Masters divisions.
Yeah.
So last year was just 40 and over. This year they kind of matched the games. They're doing 35 to 39, 40, 45, and so on, and 50 and over. Because there's so many great athletes over 40 that still want to compete. They still have that competitive desire, and they've got no place to go.
Exactly.
With CrossFit, with fantastic events like this, we now get to go out and relive our youth.
Yeah.
But it just hurts more.
But you know, I feel like it's just in your blood to want to be a competitor. Give us some of your, like before American Gladiators, what was some of your athletic background?
I played professional football.
Okay.
I played for the Rams briefly, and I went to San Jose State on a football scholarship.
Okay.
I was up in NorCal with this young lady right here. Well, no, she's young enough to be my daughter. But I was not with her, but we grew up in the same area, played football up there. But I'll tell you, you know, two of my favorite people, one is Nietzsche and one is Darwin. They both agreed on one thing, which is very few things they agreed upon, and that was the species needs to strive. So I have that thing in me, like I'm sure you guys do and any other athletes, where you have that need to strive for identification, for a purpose that is bigger than something you can conceive, you know?
You know, we've interviewed so many different athletes and so many different people within the fitness space, and it's all very consistent. Everybody has that driven idea that like there needs to be a purpose and a rhyme and a reason behind what they do. And I think
it's interesting. And as you evolve, at least for me as a man, when I was younger, it was all about me. Who can I be? What can I do? What can I be? It was about me. And as I get older, it's more about we.
Yeah.
And there becomes a certain time, at least it happened recently in my life. I don't know if you guys know, 3 years ago I had a heart attack and I almost died.
Oh, wow. No.
Nitro, down goes Nitro. I was out for the count. And whenever you go through a life-changing experience, at least for me, I came back on the other side and said, wow. And it made me look at life differently and think, you know, instead of always chasing the bigger moments in life, I think when you do that, sometimes you can let the smaller moments slip by. So what I've really tried to focus on after the heart attack was enjoying the smaller moments.
Exactly.
You know, and seeing beauty in everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people live from event to event or weekend to weekend, and you don't appreciate that day to day.
No, but it's the journey.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like seeing her smile. You know what I mean? That's like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Getting this time with you, I said, wow, that's great. So instead of like, wow, I did good at the Wadapalooza, I go throughout the day and I find
those little moments.
Small moments, I call them small moments of a human truth.
Yeah.
Small moments of human truth. And there also comes a time where it helping someone else succeed becomes more fulfilling than you succeeding.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's a point where mentorship comes in. And I get so much joy out of helping other people.
So now, how'd you make the transition? I mean, you were the Gladiator.
I'm still a man. No sex change now.
You don't identify as a woman, though.
Her voice is deeper than mine, but I'm still a man.
So when you make, when'd you say, all right, hey, you know, the Gladiator thing's over? How'd you start in the fitness world?
I'm sorry,
where'd you get started, and how'd you get started within the fitness world, like CrossFit?
Well, I started CrossFit maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I'd seen it, and I heard it, and I go, those guys are out of their frickin' mind.
Yeah.
They're out of their mind. And then one opened up in my neighborhood. So I kind of said, kind of like pulled back the curtain a little bit. I said, what is that? I went in and I go, oh, this lift heavy shit.
Yeah.
I like lifting heavy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, walk on your hands. I can do that. You know, oh, the rings. Oh, shit. I can't do that shit. But, and so I looked behind the curtain and just kind of played with it. And I think a lot of people going into CrossFit do the same thing. I'm like, look at those tattooed guys on the floor. Seriously.
Yeah.
You're laying on the floor. Seriously. I'm never doing that.
Yeah. 3
months later, I'm like, I'm on the floor.
Every workout.
Yeah, then 6 months later, I get a tattoo. You know,
really?
To join the. Well, I actually got this tattoo after the heart attack, and it's kind of my new motto. And it's the only time Jackie will ever let me touch her leg. It says, "Life is not lost by dying. Life is lost minute by minute, day by day, by not really living."
That's awesome.
It's kind of a good motto.
Yeah, we're come up with that yourself, or
yeah,
yeah.
There
I
you
like
go.
that. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, you know what? After the heart attack, I wore my hospital admin bracelet, you know, a little piece of plastic. I wore it for 7 months. And it wasn't a reminder like, you know, so I could try to get a date with her. Like, oh, what happened to you, old man? I feel sorry for you. Let's go see a movie. But it was just as a reminder to be grateful to be alive.
Yeah.
And then 7 months after the heart attack, I'm in my kitchen, and I look over, and all of a sudden it just falls to the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, it was tattered and frayed. And the weirdest thing, I started crying. You know, I was standing in my kitchen, all 220 pounds of me, looking at this. I pick up like a little piece of plastic, and I'm just weeping. You know, and I'm like, wow, I didn't understand why I was so emotional, but it kind of brought everything back into tune. And after that, I said, I need a way to remember to be grateful.
Yeah.
So every time I look down on my arm, I can read, and it puts me true north and reminds me who I want to be.
That's awesome. So I got a question for you, because there's a lot of people out there who say, oh, you know, you're 50-something years old, you shouldn't be doing the things you're doing. That's probably why you had the heart attack. What do you tell other guys your age who were intimidated to work out as hard as you do?
You know, I think everybody has to find their own journey. Mm-hmm. I don't try to preach. I just try to live by example.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to encourage people, CrossFit, fitness. You know, but for everybody, it's different. You know, the big thing is people think, you know, oh my God, it's easier for you. You love working out. Yeah. I hate the shit.
I hate it. Yeah.
I hate the shit.
Yeah.
But I know, like you, Jack, I know the results that you get when you train.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, a trick I tell myself is, instead of thinking about the pain, is how am I going to feel after?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I use that as a guiding light.
I try to tell people all the time in the gym, I go, you'll never leave here and say, I shouldn't have done that. The only thing you'll ever say is, I should have went a little bit harder.
After that first Wadapalooza workout, I was there thinking, man, why did I do this? I'm serious. Halfway out, I'm right. It was assault on Fran, which is 21:59 Fran, but add calories on the bike, 21:59. And I was like on the 15s, like, why? It was brutal. But now I feel great, and I'm ready for the second workout. Cool.
But it's weird. Like, I tried to stop doing CrossFit for like a month because I was traveling. And it was weird that I missed that mental anxiety, because you go to a different place. Like, you think a different way when you're so much pain. Because you're like,
what do you think?
Well, I'm just like,
you think about me
how am I? Yeah, I mean, all my life flashes behind me. But you just think, like, how am I going to get through this? And then I tell people, I'm like, that's real life. Like, life sucks sometimes, and everything goes wrong, and you've got to get through it. What are you going to do? Quit? Like, you don't just walk away from a wall. You're like, fuck, I got to, like, get out of this somehow. And you go somewhere in your head where you can. And in real life, you do the same damn thing. You're like, shit's not going right, but how am I going to get past it?
Well, there's a Buddhist saying, the only way out is through. Yeah. And that's how a lot of workouts are. Yeah. The only way through that workout, only way out is through it. Yeah. And it's interesting. And I agree with you 100%. I was a chubby, overweight kid. And were you really? Yeah. And for me, I was that kid who was picked last. Yep. And I found my identity through sports. The first way I ever felt good about myself was playing football. Yeah. That was the first time in my life I ever had anybody pat me on the back and say, they didn't call me Nitro then, they called me Dan. They said, hey Dan, they said, good job. And I felt myself swell up with pride, you know what I mean? I said, whoa. And so I became almost like an addict for that positive affirmation. Yeah. But like you, Jackie, I do believe that you can learn everything you need to learn about life through sports. Yeah. You learn teamwork, you learn friendship, you learn commitment. Absolutely. You learn how to lose with grace and how to win with grace. Yeah. You know? Yeah,
act as if you've been there. Like act as if you've been there before. You know, like sometimes people who've never won before, have never competed, don't really know how to handle it.
Yeah, but you also learn about disappointment.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
It teaches you about disappointment and wanting to come back and get better.
Yeah. For sure. So, I mean, I loved hearing that you have a very similar background to me. I had the same story where, like, I never really
you look great, man.
I never really felt that love, that like compassion, that somebody being proud to say that you're on their team. So, but aside from all that, let's get to the meat and potatoes. How did it all start? How did you get on Gladiators? What did you think when they pitched you the show?
Well, back then people weren't pitching me stuff. I was, trying to crawl out of the primordial soup and, find my place. So I finished playing football. San Jose State, went to the Rams, played over in Europe for a year. And I was hanging out in Hollywood thinking like, hey, I kind of want to be an actor.
And now, where are you originally from?
I'm half Japanese. I was born in Japan.
Okay.
But I grew up in Orange County, California, pretty much.
Okay, cool. You're the biggest Japanese guy in the world.
That's because I'm half. Upper half.
The upper half. Yeah, no, obviously.
And I was playing pro football. I finished playing football. I was in Hollywood. I was doing extra work, which to me at that time was like the greatest thing ever.
Really?
I get to be on TV. I make $100 a day, and you feed me. Sign me up.
I think the rate is still the same. It's probably $100 a day.
It hasn't changed. Yeah. But, I was 24 years old, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to be on TV. It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm on TV. My life is, what the misconception was, as I thought when you're on TV, you join the club, that your buddies were going to be like Stallone and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, like, they're really giving me a paper bag, eat over there while all the stars eat in the trailer.
Yeah.
So they had this audition, and it was in one of back then we actually had these things called magazines. Yeah. It wasn't all digital. Yeah. And there was an audition for athletic athletes who are good in front of the camera. And I said, hey, that's kind of me. I got a little chutzpah. I got a little je ne sais quoi. Let me go try. So we went out to this small park in Los Angeles, and they had us do like the monkey bars, the football tires.
Yeah.
And at the end of it.
Now, what year is this? Just put it in perspective.
88.
88.
Before you were born, dear.
Cool.
Year 4. So this was in 1988, and after the end of the interview, there were 3 characters, Malibu, Gemini, Nitro. They said, here's your character breakdown. It was a paragraph. And they said, go on camera, pick one of these, and be in character while we ask you questions.
Yeah.
So Nitro, loud, explosive, cocky. I go, that'd be fun. So I get on camera, and they're like, what do you eat for dinner? And I'm like, raw meat. I was such a tool.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
It's almost like being a pro wrestler.
Yeah, back then it was. And then we had a couple more interviews. And the last interview was at Universal Studios.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this shit just got real. And they brought these kids in from Cal State Northridge, and they said to them, you're going to be testing a game show. We're paying you $40 a day.
Yeah.
They thought, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, or something like this. We're on the concrete in a big soundstage, and they go to these guys who are, $40, these little skinny guys from a frat. Okay, this one is called Breakthrough and Conquer. We're going to draw a football field 15 yards on the concrete, and you're just going to carry the ball, and you got to run past that guy. And I'm like, I got smoke coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
They give this kid the ball. He's like, oh, shit. And, back then, this was a difference for me moving back to Orange County or continue to fuel the Hollywood dream because I was broke.
Yeah.
And that guy comes running at me, and I'm like, boom. I slam him to the ground. The ball goes flying, knocked him unconscious.
Oh, shit.
And at that time, I was like, oh, shit. I was like,
here comes a lawsuit.
Yeah, here comes a lawsuit. I'm getting fired. Producer calls me over, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I got carried away. And he's like, you got the job. So that was how American Gladiators started. Yeah. And it was on for 8 years. It was international. It just grew from there. It's good fun.
So, I mean, I was always a huge fan of the show when I was a kid. And as a kid, you don't understand the size of some of the competitors. You guys were all massive and larger than life. You guys all looked like pro wrestlers. But when I started to watch all the reruns in the last couple of weeks and, leading up to this interview my whole life, I saw how big some of these guys are, 6'2", 220. Like, some of the competitors were pretty big.
Yeah.
Were there ever times you were lining up with some of these competitors and you're like, this guy might hit me my ass?
Well, in the beginning, they brought big guys in. I remember I've only been knocked out once in my life, besides being hit by my mother. She said, I go down. I've been knocked out once in my life, and it was during the Powerball where they dunked these balls and we got to tackle them. Yeah. Well, this guy, Craig, I can't remember his name, he was 245, was a fullback for the Patriots.
Oh, wow.
So I went over to tackle him, and at the same time I went to hit him, his shoulder hit me in the temple, and at the same time Gemini, 265, hit him from behind. Ooh. So I had all that impact, and I was like, down, boom. And it's the only time I'm knocked out. So they had big guys. Yeah. Later on, they kind of had more smaller guys like Spieler, who were much more athletic. Yeah, a little bit more nimble. Because all the stuff they had to do. Yeah.
So what was your game? What did you look forward to doing?
I liked everything. It was good fun.
It was so
much fun.
I was on a competitive TV show myself for years. It was The Challenge on MTV.
Oh, that was at Road Rules?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I was on Road Rules, but
on.
me and a bunch of guys on the show would always talk about, well, if you could be on this or you could be on Gladiators, everybody would always say Gladiators.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it was so much cooler. But none of us were big enough. I mean, I think,
dude, you're ready.
I think at my heaviest, I'm like 205.
No, you're the right size.
Yeah.
For the contenders, it's about athletes.
Yeah.
I heard they have pugil sticks somewhere. We can go at it.
So that's what I was going to invite you to do. We have the joust over there.
Dude, let's go.
And this would be like a childhood dream. Now, what did you think, before we go and do that, what did you think of
out, bro.
I hope so.
I will knock you out.
I hope so. That would legitimize.
I will knock your Road Rules MTV host MD guy out.
So here you're going to see it here right on the FITAID Morning Show. Mr. Beautiful versus Nitro in the joust. Awesome event.
That'd be fun.
I would love to do it. But also, I wanted to ask you about, what did you think of the remake? Because I thought the remake was going to be super cool. I love the idea of Wolf, and then Jen was on the show.
I love Jen Wiederstrom, yeah.
Yeah, and then they had Hogan doing it. Why do you think it fell apart? Your show was so successful. I mean, that show aired for years. How long did you?
8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years, and then that show got canceled after a year. What do you think they were missing?
Well, the difference was when we did our show, it was a small independent company.
Yeah.
That sold it in syndication.
Yeah.
When it came back, it was NBC, big network.
Yeah.
So I worked on the new one. I was one of the producers on it.
Okay.
Consulting producer.
Yeah.
And the difference was in our show, you just had to ask one person.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think about this idea? We would go test it out. There, you'd ask one person, it would go to the next person, it would go to a suit at NBC, it would go to an accountant, it would go to another accountant type guy, and these guys didn't have a sports background.
Yeah.
When we first did it, we had a bunch of guys who did NFL football, the cameraman, consult, so it was much more like a sport.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happens sometimes when things go too corporate.
Yeah. And there were too many Chiefs and no Indians.
Well, the Chiefs weren't the right Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's almost like the movie industry now. You know, you don't see those small, cool movies anymore.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, I love the big, tent poles.
The remakes are never the same.
Right.
But I think the problem with a lot of these big blockbuster movies is they're so worried about the CGI and all this stuff that the actual good stories are lost. Some of my favorite movies have no CGI or any of this stuff. And like, think of a movie like Goodfellas. It's just a great story.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Great story.
So they don't make those movies
They don't
anymore.
make movies like that anymore.
They don't. So I think that's the difference. It got corporate. But I still love the brand.
Yeah.
Johnny Ferraro, who created it with Dan Carr. I'm still good friends with those guys. And, it'll always be part of who I am.
Cool. Well, Dan, we'll be pulling for you all weekend
thank you,
long.
man. So nice.
Hope to see you really kick some ass out there.
This hotness.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Nitro right here on the FITAID Morning Show. We'll catch you guys in a little bit. We're going to have some other guests on here.
He's going down. This boy's going down. He's going down.
Me versus Nitro. Childhood dream.
I've seen bigger arms on a clock.